Hey there, it's Perch. Welcome to another over congested highway where I'm not traveling very fast. Perfect video making conditions. Um, I feel, I don't know what to call this topic. I think we'll work our way through it and then I'll get a title and then, we'll be able to make the video and everything. But it's a strange time in comics because, not by reality, but by perception. And what I mean by that is, the story in the stores are not that dramatic. There are comics being sold, there are comics not being sold. Business still feels soft. I've gone around with, I don't mean that in a fight way, but just I've talked a lot with Comic-Con over, and it's interesting because they bring hard data in a lot of cases about sales, and they bring a lot of history, which is really, really useful. And I bring, history certainly and sales from my little microcosm and then also kind of the places around it. And then I also bring gut feel. This is not something Comic Con I think makes analysis based on things they're thinking and they're seeing, and I make gut feel based upon thing I'm seeing and feeling. So gut, I'll be the first to tell you, and this is I think kind of my personality. I'm a very trying to be very balanced around the things that I'm sensing, the things that I'm feeling. I try not to let my imagination run away with me of saying, "Oh, the business is going this way." You can't read too much. Remember that video a while back of drawing assumptions? You can't make assumptions about things. You need to ultimately correlate with facts. That's one reason why I like talking to Comic-Con, even though they sometimes come with a perspective that's different from what I've seen, and it's not we don't argue, but it's two different viewpoints coming together. I find a lot of strength in that because I take my gut and my assumptions and some what I'm seeing and then compare it on a national scale against hard data, and it kind of helps you analyze and kind of navigate the future. But what's hard is that comics, everything's about definition. I think comics as a place is in a really weird place, and it's in a weird place for a large number of reasons. Number one, there's a lot of kind of existing classic creators who are more or less out of the picture now, and I don't think we've ever had such a sea change. Right there, I know a bunch of people argue with me, but there's been eras where creators have come and gone, but we're really seeing, and particularly at Marvel, but some at DC as well, we're seeing a very fundamental shift of the creators on the books. We're seeing a new crowd, a new class, if you will. And that's not when I say that, there's a lot of kind of gut emotional reactions of no, we're not, or it's been that way before, or why are you saying comics suck? And that last one is the one that I want to object to because I'm not saying comics sucks. I'm saying it's a different crowd. There's differences. You can kind of look at the data in front of you, and there's a lot of new faces here in the mix, and a lot of these new faces have come from, for lack of a better word, the internet age. They've grown up on message boards and forums and those kinds of things. They in many cases, some of them have grown up with some level of digital, which is weird to me. It's just so weird. It's like people are like, "Hey, when were you born?" "Oh, I was born the year Ghostbusters 2 came out." It's like, oh, that's a shot to the groin right there. Um, what can I say? There's other ways. So another way it's weird is that the price and value and kind of the whole financial aspects of comics are really twisted around right now. They're really confused. They're the comics feel, and we talked about this already. The comics feel too expensive. They are too expensive for what the market seems to be wanting to bear, but we're barreling forward anyway. And we're doing so in a time when retail is very strange and brick and mortar is very fragile, and there's a lot of kind of odd complexities. But at the same time, you've got comic properties and movies making $1 billion or more. So you've got a lot of financial factors that do not line up. They're coming at you from very different angles, and that creates a lot of strange uncertainty. And then you have the two kind of mega corporations. You got AT&T, Time Warner, and you have Disney, who are basically in charge of the two publishers, and they are sending very, very mixed messages about how much they care about the comics. They definitely, I mean, you're not gonna get an interview where Bob Iger is gonna come out and go, "Yeah, I don't, comics are stupid. I don't know why we're doing that." He's always going to come out and say, comics are great. Stanley is great. This is amazing. The legacy and history of comics. He's going to say these things in speeches that were written for him, that are very complimentary of all parts of the business. But the actions, it's like you go to Disney Springs and you go into that store, and the Marvel comics is literally in a corner, literally, buried. And they don't even have the full amount of comics there. And on last visit, they said the comics were going to be leaving, that they'd probably still bring in a handful of graphic novels, but really it's just going to be merchandise and not going to bother with comics at all in a Marvel store. And it just, like, wrap your head around that one. That's weird. Um, all these factors are making for a very strange industry. And then on top of that, social media behavior overall, with politics, with society, with social issues, with everything, is super polarized and super binary. And as I posted something a while back of, there are thousands of hashtags of, something is a hate group, or blank are a hate group. And, you can say, well, that of course there are a lot of Nazis out there. Okay, well, why is it that there is a lot of Democrats are a hate group, Republicans are a hate group, libertarians are a hate group? I mean, good Lord, everything is a hate group. You are part of a hate group already. There's Christians are a hate group, Muslims are a hate group, agnostic people are a hate group. It's everything is a freaking hate group. And so you have this. It's very hard to just put an opinion out there and get some commentary on it without a bunch of people just jumping on it and beating on it with a stick, and drawing a lot of assumptions. So comics has always been strengthened, as we've talked about, by a community. A community makes comics stronger. It makes it healthier. It makes ideas come out. It's what, I mean, the funny part is, but of what I said at the beginning, there's a lot of new creators out there who are who came into this because of the community. They came into it specifically because of the internet community. They were on the Warren Ellis message boards, or the Burn boards, or they frequented CBR back when a lot of the people were there. I mean, Kelly Thompson was a writer at CBR, was a mod on those forums, is now a writer at Marvel, and one of their bigger ones. And the creators out now grew up with that community, which makes it all the more puzzling and sad and frustrating that that community is currently at complete war with itself. Because fast forward 10 years from now, and a lot of the creators who are, in the mix of things today will not be in the mix of things tomorrow. And I'm not saying that from they'll fail or they'll be bad or nothing like that. I'm saying it from a practical sense. I'm saying it from history. Go back in time 10 years. Who are the writers? Go back in time 20 years. Who are the writers? Guess what? They're not the writers today. So it is inevitable. It will change. There's no way around it. That's just history. So what comes after? And I think, here's my prediction and my hope. And a lot of people will come out and say, well, the future is clearly Indiegogos and all that. We've talked about that too. That's just one facet. That's not even the major one. There are comics as a business and industry have a lot of pieces to it, and that's just one arm of many. That's not, the whole future is not going to hinge off of Indiegogo campaigns. It would break the back if suddenly a lot of things went that way, and it's going to change too. But my prediction is that we're in a period of high anxiety, high uncertainty, high, toxic fights that go all directions. And it's a little bit like people getting it out of their system. It's a little bit like the internet back in 94, where AOL came out, and the people who were early adopters into AOL were jerks, and they went on those message boards and just said crazy, insane things. And then eventually, the platform figured out how to police itself a little bit better, and the early adopters realized that that wasn't any way to live, and the drama wasn't worth it, and people kind of got out of their system. They calmed down, and we had a brief period of sanity before kind of the mainstream came in. It's funny, I was predicting 15 years ago, I predicted that this would happen, where you'd have the early adopters came out of the internet, they turned into a garbage fire for a while, and then we got Harmony. But the real threat was going to be the mass adopters, that second wave of people who are just going to come in and 10x the volume of people and volume. We're going to come in and just murder everything. But I think one thing, whether you are pro-Trump or anti-Trump, one positive about this, the for lack of a better word, the Trump era, is that it's burning a bunch of things on a fire. It's getting a lot of this behavior out in the open. It's exposing it. It's putting it out there, and we will rebuild from here. The again, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, that Trump kind of rage tweets that will go on. It's not a way to govern a country long term. And I think what will happen is we're getting a lot of this stuff out. We're exposing a lot of it. We're getting news is going through its various kind of schism, and we're going to get to the other end, and people are going to ultimately get back to fundamentals, which are we want to have a good life, we'd like to have an economy, we'd like to make money and have profits, and being at constant war with each other is the people who profit off of it will be tarred and feathered, will be held up at some point to say, you encourage this rage and this hatred and this fighting, and we're done with you now. You made a lot of money off that. You're in very rich houses off of that. Now it's time to cash in and hide. And what you are seeing, actually, a little bit, my hopeful part of my body believes that we're nearing the tail end of this period, because you're starting to see some of the big antagonists, if you will, of a lot of the aggression on the left and the right are starting to retreat back into they're retreating back to the cave for slumber. They've got a lot of money, and the smart ones know that if you get out before it all blows up, because at some point you're going to be held up as a cause of a lot of bad stuff. So it's time to cash in your chips and wander back into the cave. And you're seeing people starting to do that, whether it's Bannon, or whether it's some of the main kind of writers, contributors from SNBC are starting to cash out. You're seeing some of the book writers starting to. You're seeing when people like Van Jones start working on getting a contract for a more longer term show that's going to focus on something where the big kind of social knee jerk reaction is not at the forefront. And he was never anywhere close to the biggest kind of rage generator. But you see a lot of people, smart people, starting to defend their position. So where does it relate to comics? I just think we're in a very confusing, very tumultuous period right now. But I feel like we're nearing the end of it. I think we're heading for probably over the next 2 years. There's going to be a lot of kind of things that are going to work out of the system, and we're going to start to build onto normalcy again. And you're going to see a revert back to classic fundamentals. And I believe, and then that could take many forms. It may take the form of Marvel, going full licensing. It may take the form of kind of some different distribution. It will take the form of all these things. It will take the form of different distribution models, and actually a smart digital plan, and maybe a return to the comic plus digital extras kind of concept. And there's just a lot of different directions it can go. And I think we're keep heart, everyone, keep heart. We're going to make it. I think we're close. Things are shaking out. All of these distractions, all this anger, all this rage, all this finger pointing, and he's a Nazi, he's an SJW, all that kind of stuff. We're going to get back to just, here's a comic we can read, here's a comic we won't read. Good news, there's a lot of comics. I think that we're headed there. That's my optimistic view. I'll leave you with that. Happy days. Happy days are right around the corner. Hey, thanks for listening. I really appreciate every minute of your time listening to this stuff. Thank you. Uh, if you if you'd like to come on, I'm lining up a bunch of interviews. I'm going to go kind of rapid fire. I've got a couple pros. I've got a couple fans. I've got some different perspectives. Would love to get yours. So drop me a line. Let me know. More reviews and everything else. So now's the time. Subscribe, tell a friend, hit the bell for notification. Follow me on social media. Comic Perch, Twitter. Thanks for listening.